Hello everybody, this is Natalia Peterson, and today is our pierogi and borscht cooking day. My assistant, or actually the chef, is Tanya van den Mierendonk, who is my daughter, and we hope you enjoy this.
Hi, I'm Tanya. So we're going to make the pierogi dough here first. We've already made mashed potatoes, which I'll get to later. But the first thing that you're going to do is you're going to have 2 cups of regular flour. And you're going to put that in your mixer. This is 1 batch of pierogies, but if you want to double or even triple the batch, it's not that hard.
Yeah, we've done triple maybe, or quadruple for Ukrainian Christmas.
So you have your 2 cups of flour, and then you're going to have just half a teaspoon salt, or more to your preference if you want. My grandfather, who taught us how to make pierogies, his only criticism of the time that I first made them by myself was, good dough needs a little more salt. So we're just going to get those 2 mixed together a little bit. Then I'm going to put in 1 egg. And half a cup of sour cream. Exactly half a cup. The sour cream gives the dough a little bit of tanginess and also keeps it nice and moist so that it doesn't dry out. And it's easier to work with when you're rolling it out and cutting it and turning into little pierogies. Look at that, an exact half a cup. How perfect. So, half cup sour cream. Get that moving a little. Starting a little crumbly now. And then our last ingredient is a half a stick of butter. 4 tablespoons. Make sure your butter is soft before you put it in there. No cold butter for this dough. So we're gonna mix that all together in batches here. If you need to kind of stop and move some stuff around, go ahead. If you want to, you can use the whisk attachment, the paddle attachment. I like to use at the beginning, and then I usually take it out and knead it by hand once everything's kind of mixed together, because then I can knead it until I feel like the dough is really good for forming. But if you want to, you can also use a dough hook for some of that work, if that's your preference. So I floured my baking surface, and I am now kneading the dough by hand. I couldn't tell you exactly when it's ready, like how many times you knead it, or like how many minutes you knead it, because my grandfather taught us how to do this, and it's kind of just by feel. But you want a dough that isn't super sticky. You know, if you've made like homemade raviolis or any other type of dumpling, or, you know, that's kind of what pierogies are, like the Eastern European version of dumplings or pasta. So you want dough that that isn't crumbly too dry, because you want it to be nice and tender so that when you boil them, they're not too dry or anything. But you also don't want it to be super, super sticky. So if you need to add, I usually, depending on the weather, humidity or anything, I usually add a little bit of extra flour just to my liking. That floured surface will help you do that as well. And I really just kind of knead it until I make sure that all the butter is really in there and it's nice and combined, and that the dough is good for rolling out into about 1/4 inch thick and cutting. So we want something that, like what I have right now is almost there. It pulls apart a little too much, so I'm going to add just a tiny bit more flour. I would say knead for about 5 minutes.
Okay, and
all right, so we've got our dough. It's nice consistency, not too sticky, but still nice and soft and malleable. So I use a pasta maker in order to roll out the dough to the correct thickness. When my grandfather taught us how to make pierogis, he used a rolling pin, which is great, but I am lazy, and I also usually make really big batches, and a rolling pin is hard work. And so a few years after I was making them every year for Christmas, my chef brother said, well, why don't you use a pasta maker? And I went, huh, yeah, that's brilliant. So I got a pasta maker attachment for the KitchenAid, and it makes things really easy. So for this dough, since it's a little thick, what I usually do is I run it through once or so on the first setting to kind of get it flattened. Usually run it through once or twice just to get that nice smooth texture. So then I fold it up. I'm not a professional chef, so there's probably a better way to do this, but I couldn't tell you what it is. So we've got our nice kind of soft dough, and then I move it down to the number 3 notch and run it through one more time to really get it nice and thin. You want about a 1/4 inch or so, at least, as far as your thickness for your dough. I like a thin dough pierogi, but that's a preference. So yeah, and then so we've got a nice thin little strip that we can cut out our little circles from. All right. And then we have a 3-inch cookie cutter. That's all you need. Otherwise, you're good. So we make our little 3-inch circles like that. And then when we're done with our little 3-inch circles, we're ready to fill them with mashed potatoes and pinch them together.
okay, so Tanya is the one that puts all the ingredients together because she's so good at it. But I've been stuffing potatoes for 50-ish years, and so you take the potato mixture. That's probably a little too much. Maybe about a teaspoonful of potatoes.
That's like a tablespoon.
Is it a tablespoon?
Yeah.
Okay, about a tablespoon. And you fold it like a little taco, and you start pinching it on top, and then pinch it all the way that way, and then pinch it this way. And as my mother always said, you want to pinch it so you don't see any seams. So it does kind of take a while to get this done, but look at that. Isn't that a beauty?
Beautiful.
It's perfect. And then what you want to do is you want to put them on a floured tray of some sort. And if you are planning on making them and then freezing them, what you want to do is get a tray that would fit in your freezer so that they freeze flat. So that's what we'll do with all of these pierogi.
Yeah, if you want to keep making some, I'll just talk quickly about the mashed potatoes.
Okay.
So I'm just going to talk with you.
Okay.
You can prepare mashed potatoes any way that you want. I personally throw in, with the boiling potatoes, I throw in a couple cloves of garlic, And then I prepare mashed potatoes with a little bit of milk and a little bit of broth and a little bit of butter and a little bit of sour cream. So,
Cheese?
hang on.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's how I do and a little bit of salt. And that's how I do my mashed potatoes. And then for the filling, most recipes are so-called for a 1-to-1 ratio as far as filling to cheese. I usually maybe use a little less cheese, but recipes will call for about a cup of mashed potatoes to a cup of some sort of shredded cheese. So you make your mashed potatoes and then you fold in the cheese. Ukrainian pierogis are usually made with a mild cheese, like a farmer cheese. You could also use like a medium mild Monterey Jack or provolone or even mozzarella if you can't get any of those. The other thing about pierogis is that you don't have to just fill them with mashed potatoes. You can fill them with all sorts of things. So a lot of people fill them with sauerkraut. I've had dessert pierogis that are filled with fruit and then dipped in sugar. So there are lots of different ways that you can make pierogis. You can put pork, like ground meat in them. So really, it's like any other dumpling. Just like let your imagination run wild and put whatever you really want in them.
And as you're making them like this, oftentimes you're going to find that it gets sticky, so make sure that you have flour on the table so that, to make it easier to pinch it together. Because when you're using your finger in the dough or in the potatoes, your fingers will get a little sticky as well. So lots of flour.
Hold that one up. It's looking great. Oh no, move it down a little bit. There we go. Beautiful.
So as you can see, we made exactly 36 pierogi out of that. And it took us a little more than an hour between the two of us. And what you don't eat, you can put in the fridge, but make sure that it's on a flat plate until they're frozen. And then you can bag them and eat, a certain amount at one time, or bag them to share. Oh, and Tanya says no longer than 5 minutes. So right now I am sauteing some onions, and when they're nice and soft, we'll put them on top of the boiled pierogi. And voila! We have pierogis with fried onions and sour cream. Good.